Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our weekly video series. I'm Peyton, and I am joined by the ladies, Corey and Yaila. And today we are talking about spiritual bypassing. So if this is something that you have never heard of, it is a really important topic that is just not talked about very much in the spiritual community. So we are going to fill you in on what it is and how you can avoid making this common mistake. But if you are new to us, seeing us for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channels, which are listed down below, because we release weekly videos that help you on your spiritual path. So to kick us off talking about spiritual bypassing, I'd like to start with you, Yaila. Can you explain a little bit just what this word means for anyone who's never heard it before? And how does this come up with you, with your clients, and in your practice?
Yeah, thank you. This is such an interesting topic because I feel like spiritual bypassing can be such a fine line to discover for yourself. So when I think of spiritual bypassing, it's basically using spirituality or the different forms of spirituality to bypass or to disconnect from actually moving through emotions or moving through some type of trauma or moving through something that's coming up to the surface that's ready to be healed, but we're using a form of spirituality or a form of something that sounds good in theory to focus on instead. So what that can look like, and I'll kind of there's different examples of spiritual bypassing for a lot of people when they're going through. It could be something traumatic, it could be an old wound, it could be just something in their current life that is triggering them, that could be bringing up some of this old stuff. And for many people, what spiritual bypassing can look like, instead of really looking at their emotions and feeling their emotions, they will resort to doing these spiritual things. So, for example, taking a bunch of classes and not really addressing the issue, or it's like always getting new information as a default instead of kind of dealing with what's coming to the surface. So in the beginning, a spiritual bypass can feel very productive. It can feel like you're doing something for the betterment. However, what happens is, and this is where I feel like the fine line is determined, if the same scenario or like a pattern keeps popping up over and over and over again, and you're noticing that you're kind of going, oh, I need to take this new course, or let me just, praying is great. I don't want to like discount praying, but it's like, I'm just going to pray it, and just not think about it and brush it under the rug and, kind of move things out of the way. So like, if you're always defaulting to just not addressing it, that is going to be a sign that you could possibly be spiritual bypassing. So when I see this I've noticed this in myself, I've noticed this in my clients. Some people can do like spiritual bypassing even through other things in life. So, the world out there that maybe not in the spiritual community, they might resort to other distractions like substances or work. If you just like immerse yourself in work to avoid dealing with these deeper things coming up, you could be bypassing yourself on that spiritual level, that spiritual up level that you're basically being confronted with. And when this happened for me, I started noticing those patterns that were continually showing up. And I had to take that hard look at myself and say, what am I not looking at here? What am I not letting my body and myself process emotionally? And in the beginning, it was a little scary just because some of the stuff was kind of hard to look at, especially my piece in it. How was I, what was my side to the story? How was I either not showing up fully for myself? What were some boundaries I needed to establish or understand? And, just take that hard look at where I was showing up personally. So that's kind of where I started. There's a lot of different processes when it comes to avoiding spiritual bypassing. So, feeling your emotions. And when I felt my emotions, what I thought would take weeks or months to process and get over, once I just let myself really feel it, it only lasted for minutes or hours. You kind of move through it very quickly and you start getting deeper insights. And sometimes spiritual bypassing can be a helpful thing, meaning when you're not sure which direction to go and you're just like, all right, creator, God, if you want to pray to it, be like, help me out with this. And you kind of release it to, whatever higher power you believe in. You're asking for support. And to avoid bypassing is to look at what information or what support does come to you from that. We're still in an action world. There are still like physical steps we need to take. We can't just, meditate and say Om for 3 hours and everything's going to go away. Sometimes we actually have to make changes. And so when you are releasing it to the universe, maybe just to pull yourself outside of it for a little bit, call in that support, however that can show up. And then we do take action steps to kind of move through those steps. Some other ways that people spiritual bypass is, and I see this really, it's kind of, it really sticks. It really is like a stickler for me in the spiritual community, because what I find is some of these mind expanding substances like ayahuasca or mushrooms, these types of substances, for many people, they have seen benefit. But what I'm seeing in the spiritual community is a lot of people are using these substances as a spiritual bypass. So I see, microdosing to be able to, live in this reality more comfortably versus actually learning tools and steps and making internal emotional, energetic changes for yourself to be able to do it without any outside help. So not to say everything on that level is bad. There's new research around that. But what I will say is if you are using that as your go-to, it's almost like the acceptable way to use substances right now. If you're using it as like a spiritual thing, that many times can be a spiritual bypass because you're using this outside thing to avoid really dealing with your things. There are some people who do say like, oh, well, my mind opened up so much when I went on this ayahuasca retreat. But, if you're doing it 20, 30 times, you may want to check and see what are you looking for in your everyday life that's calling you to these retreats and doing the substance 20 or 30 times. Because once your mind is opened, it's showing you a possibility of what energy is out there. Your job in your life is to how do you implement this new level of awareness in reality, in your everyday life, waking up in the morning, eating just fruits and vegetables, drinking water, without anything that's going to change your mental physiology. So that would be a big watch out for. And I have a feeling there's some people in the spiritual world that might give me a little backlash for that, but I'm okay with it because, there is a level of spiritual bypass where people aren't really doing, I call it their work, really showing up day to day, really dealing with their emotions, really showing up and taking action steps to thrive in this reality, not just thriving when they're on, some type of psychedelics. So I'll throw that out there. There is research showing that psychedelics can help with depression and anxiety and things like that and PTSD. I'm not here to say, it's good or not. All I'm saying is have a level of awareness when you are implementing these types of practices. What will you have set up in your everyday day-to-day life? That's going to help you determine if you're using it as a bypass versus something that's going to help you. So spiritual bypassing can be a lot of different things, but what I generally find is if you are using some type of spirituality or class or some guru or somebody that you listen to for guidance as a way to avoid your own issues. That would be probably my number one thing of that might be a bypass for you. If you're using it to gain more insights, to look at yourself deeper, to implement new tools and techniques and things like that, so you can use it in this everyday life, you're probably not bypassing because you are confronting these things coming up and you're finding helpful ways to let yourself truly process it so you can move through it. So that's what I would start with, the spiritual bypassing. But Corey, how about you?
Oh gosh, Yaila, that was amazing. One of the things I'll say it as I say it often is I love getting together with you ladies because, I learned so much still. We've known each other a long time and still learn so much. Spiritual bypassing, excuse me. I think of spiritual bypassing, really bypassing, period. And I loved what you said, Yaila, about like the ayahuasca and that sort of thing is it reminds me of being in high school and not wanting to do your homework and cheating by copying somebody else's work and getting an A. And you're like, yeah, you know, that's a form of bypassing. Um, Also, another form of it, I loved that analogy of ayahuasca, is okay, yeah, use it, experience it, but to be doing it 20 or 30 times is a form of escape as opposed to a form of dealing with your stuff. When I started this journey, and I do have a lot of clients that are much the same, is feeling was really hard. Really owning your stuff and looking at my part, and my clients, helping them to look at their part so that they don't do the bypassing. And another example is, yeah, looking at videos, a lot of videos, YouTube, and getting the answers as opposed to, yes, using it as a tool to help you move through your own work, the inner work, on your own. And, I see it so often. And one of the things that really popped up in my mind, as you were talking, was, a lot of charlatans. We're in an age, and it always has been this way, but especially now because the spiritual community is growing. And there's a lot of charlatans, that, you know, talk the talk, but don't walk the talk. And that is a big form of spiritual bypassing. And the way that I was taught was to not have a guru, that, I mean, yes, it was my choice. And I think Peyton, we did a class together where we looked at gurus, and it left such an imprint in my mind when we looked at gurus, and we looked at a lot of them, and to make that decision, about gurus. And I mean, I was never really good at having people tell me what to do anyways. So it wasn't a very hard choice for me. However, spiritual bypassing is a form of when you find a guru and you're not doing the work. You're having somebody else do that inner work for you. And because we're all different, we're all individuals, and we all have our innards that need to be looked at. Another thing that reminds me of spiritual bypassing is like the person who goes to church every Sunday and learns a lot about the spiritual things, but doesn't implement it in their lives. Doesn't reads the words, knows how to repeat what was in that Sunday service, but not walk the talk. That's a form of spiritual bypass by saying, well, I am this and I do this, but not actually implementing the teachings to which they are learning. That's a big, I've been seeing a lot of that lately. And growing up, I mean, I have a twin brother, and, hey, I don't know, if it wasn't for him, it would have been hard to get through high school because I was just, well, I was busy partying, but, I was doing a lot of spiritual bypassing. And, but he helped me a lot through high school. And so I have a lot of experience in bypassing. So when starting to do this, be on the spiritual journey and start doing the deep inner work. It took time for me, and I have quite a few clients that are very similar in that um, it's not easy to do the deep inner work, but to be free of the demons or the inner traumas. If you want to really work them out, you have to do the inner work. And I think we're in a time now on this planet, and what I've been seeing with my clients and and some of my students, that it's necessary to do that inner work, and the answers are within us. And so hence that's why we're all teachers, to help people do their own inner work and do it so it's not so you don't get lost, that you have somebody to help you. And but and as I say that, it reminds me too of spiritual bypassing. Is another way of doing it is somebody who maybe likes to go to psychics all the time or get readings all the time and get the answers from a psychic, a medium, a channeler, an energy worker, to get their answers, as opposed to going deep within. That's another form of spiritual bypassing, by relying on anything, relying on something or someone else to give you the answers is a form of spiritual bypassing. So, and the ayahuasca, and with the ayahuasca, yeah, there has been, reports on it that says that it is good for some things. But I remember the first time somebody asked me, if I had done it. Actually, I didn't even know what it was. So he had to explain to me what it was, and how it worked. And, he said, have you ever done it? And it felt so good to say, no, I've never done it. And, I don't have to. I mean, I can get there all by myself, because I've trained. At that point, it was like over a year into it, and realizing, wow, I don't have to do ayahuasca, because I've done the work. I've done the inner work. I've gone to training consistently, and he was just mind blown. But I'm really grateful for that, for sure. And so, all right, Peyton, I'd love to hear what you have to say too.
Thanks, Corey. Well, you guys covered this so thoroughly. I'm not sure I can add much that you guys haven't already said. And this is I love hearing both of your perspectives on it, because this isn't something that gets talked about a lot. So it's very easy to fall into this mistake. And this is something that I really fell into when I was first starting my spiritual awakening, because my first teachers always taught me, well, if you're on the spiritual path, you have to be love and light all the time. You have to be thinking positive all the time, because what you think, you manifest. And why, yes, we know that that is true. It misses a huge part of the story, which is that you have to also heal your stuff. And if you're not doing that, and you're only thinking and focusing on the positive, all that stuff just builds up until it explodes. So I see a lot of people, myself included, because I was the poster child for this, and it was totally accidental. I didn't know, I thought I was doing the right thing. And so for me, spiritual bypassing means spiritual denial. And you guys have summed this up so beautifully, talking about it's when you're using something else to avoid doing your own work. And again, this can be, something you're doing consciously and you know about it, or it can be something that so many people don't realize they're doing. And so to me, this is something that so many light workers especially fall into this trap, because they think if they put their attention on the dark side, they're going to attract more of that. And really, the dark side is coming up for you to heal it. And so if you're pushing that away, and I did this so much when I was just starting out, because I thought, well, I'm not supposed to look at that. It feels bad, so that means I'm not supposed to pay attention to it. And what happens? It just gets bigger and bigger until it explodes. So for me, this is something that's just so easy to fall into this trap. And so for me, spiritual bypassing is anything you're refusing to look at. And the girls have summed this up so perfectly. It can be that thing you are just hoping goes away. It can be that thing you are using substances to avoid. It can be so many different things. Something that you just don't know what to do about, so you let someone else tell you what to do, like Corey was saying with teachers. So anything that you're avoiding sitting down and confronting can be a spiritual bypass. And how this gets to be such a huge problem is because as light workers and star seeds, we are here in this lifetime to heal the dark. We are here to heal every lifetime, not just what we've created in this lifetime, but every lifetime. And so a huge part of our spiritual job is to integrate the dark. And so if you're not willing to look at that, either because you don't know how to, or it's too scary, you can fall very easily into the trap of bypassing. And what happens when you start to bypass is you're not doing the thing your soul came here to do, which was to integrate that stuff. So that's why spiritual bypassing is really so, so important, to just be aware that it can happen. So what do you do? Like the $1 million question is, how do you know if you're bypassing or if you're really just working through something and haven't quite fully integrated it yet? And so, as Yaila mentioned, this takes absolute self-honesty. You have to be willing to really sit down with yourself and figure out how you are dealing with an issue. So the first thing I always recommend is take something that is not going well in your life, something that triggers you, something that has been a huge headache, and ask yourself honestly, what am I doing to confront this issue? And if your answer is, well, I'm meditating and I'm asking my guides for help and I'm doing all of my healing practices and I'm getting support from teachers, you're probably in the process of integrating. So you're probably on the right path. But if you answer that question with, well, I'm drinking a lot when it comes up, and I'm blaming this on my mom because it's definitely her fault, and I'm waiting for my, psychic teacher to tell me what to do, and I don't even know what to do, so I'm just going to ignore it and hope it goes away. If you fall in that camp, you are probably on the verge of bypassing. So just sit down with yourself and just honestly ask yourself, how are you dealing with this issue? Because anything that is going wrong in your life is just a sign that healing needs to occur. That's all it is. It's just a reflection. So how you are dealing with that will tell you whether you are on the path to integration or whether you could be downsliding into a bypass. So what do you do then if you are feeling you're creeping into bypass territory? The number one thing I always recommend is shadow work, because the whole purpose of shadow work is to help you look at that sticky stuff that you don't really want to deal with, process it, and let it go. That's the whole point of shadow work. And we have done a great video on shadow work, so check out below and get all the details on it if you are not familiar with it. But to me, that is always my number one recommendation. So if you are doing your shadow work, the second thing the guides always tell my clients and me when I tend to slide into this territory myself is forgiveness. Forgive yourself and forgive anyone else involved. Because again, if we're in one of those situations that we feel the need to escape from, which is where we get into bypass territory, we're probably in a lot of judgment. And so when you start to forgive, your higher self can start to bring you solutions to that problem so that you don't need to slide into that avoidance territory. So anyway, I think that's kind of how I approach bypassing. Can you guys think of anything else? Anything you want to throw in on the topic of bypassing?
Yeah, so something that just really pops in my mind when it comes to spiritual bypassing in the process. And you kind of touched on it a lot, Peyton, with the emotions, right? Like good vibes only. I actually have a shirt that says only good vibes. I kind of want to take a picture and be like, this is bullshit, because it's not only good vibes. You know, we have all of our emotions for a reason. And in previous videos, I've even done like the air quotes with like lower vibrations, because they're not lower. They're just another frequency. They are there for a reason to let you know what's in alignment and what's not in alignment. So something I will say as far as bypassing goes, it's okay if you notice that you're angry. Anger is a catalyst for change. It, you know, inspires you to start taking some action. So it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to notice you have some guilt or shame or whatever's popping up. It's letting you know something either in your past or your present is not in alignment. And you get to choose, where do you want to go from here? And I loved the shadow work. Something else I noticed too, for people when they are in the discovery of possibly spiritually bypassing, is where are you consciously? Because what I notice when we are in pain or we're in avoidance of something, our awareness literally pops out of our body. And as an energy reader, I can see your awareness not fully in your body. You are so disconnected from the feelings in your body that you're always popping out, whether you're using some kind of substance to help you do that or not. You're not fully present in the now moment. And so doing even like a basic grounding meditation just to bring you fully to this present moment can be extremely healing and extremely helpful to look at what is showing up. And then from there, you can decide, do I need shadow work? Do I need to journal? Do I, you know, whatever you need to do I need to, you know, take a program that's going to help me address some of these deeper issues, you know, whatever path you want to go down to help you confront the situation will be helpful. But even just having that awareness of, wow, am I fully even just present to myself? Especially for people that I see who've done a lot of mushrooms or ayahuasca, they tend to pop out of their body a lot. They have a really hard time being present fully in their body in this now moment. And so the energy never fully moves, it never fully integrates. And so they're always in this continual loop of needing this outside thing, this outside answer, this outside whatever, because they're not fully integrated with it yet. So I would just add that to spiritual bypassing.
I love that. And I think what you said at the beginning too, Yaila, is super important when you talked about being willing to feel your feelings. And that's something that as empaths and people who are very sensitive, it can be really hard to do. But the more you do that, honestly, you keep yourself out of bypass territory and you release things so much faster. Once I started, anytime I was triggered, I would immediately go to, okay, what is the emotion I'm feeling here? Breathe into it, accept it, and release it. That I've started to move through some of even those really, really heavy things so quickly. So if you're willing to sit honestly and feel it, you can really move through stuff a lot faster than you might be thinking you can. So anything else, ladies? Corey,
Yeah,
anything?
yeah. Just one last thing is, there was so many years. I know for me, a lot of people I work with, that feelings were just, it was just, just shoot me. I'd rather just shoot me instead of feel. And what helped me so much, and this is what changed my life, and I see a lot in my clients, is by doing, classes and learning about energy work and how does energy work. And when I was able to look at feelings as another energy in my body that needed to be dealt with, or even ventured into, just looked at, it was life-changing for me, because it wasn't so devastating to have those feelings, because I was raised, and I know still a lot of my clients feel this way, is, to have those feelings meant that you were weak or a bad person, or you just didn't have any control over yourself. And it's such the opposite. And when I was able to, take classes and in energy work and look at my feelings as just another energy that needed to be looked at and cleared, it was a huge, huge difference for me. And suddenly I was like, okay, feelings, bring them on, bring them on. And so I work with a lot of my clients in that alone so that they don't do the spiritual bypassing or bypassing of any other thing. So I'm glad that we decided to talk about this today because it's a good one.
And I find too, Corey, I love that you're saying, when you learn how to just let yourself feel the emotions. For me in the beginning, when I wasn't used to expressing my emotions, because like similar, brought up weak, bad, wrong, what's wrong with you for having a feeling other than happy. When I would first express my emotions, they were so bottled up, it would come out as this big explosion. When I started letting myself feel it in the moment, I would feel it, but it was in so much more balance. And it wasn't this big explosion that would tear down the world around me. It was like, oh, I'm like pissed off right now and it's okay. Like I'm angry. I can say what I need to say about whatever boundary needs to be set up. And that's it. Like, it doesn't have to be this big blown out issue. Or in the past, when I would stuff it in and avoid it, when it would finally come out, because you can only hold it for so long, it would be like, the wrath of terror. So for some of you who have had that experience in the back, you didn't have a balanced way of expressing your emotions, just know the more you let yourself feel it, the less it's going to be explosive. You'll find healthier ways to still express it and address it without it being such a terrifying event for others involved.
I love that. And I think one of the reasons that people are afraid to feel their feelings is they feel like they're going to be unable to get out of it. Like if I let myself feel anger, I'm going to be taken down and not able to climb out of that. And what the Pleiadians have taught me is you only have to feel it for about 45 seconds. And then you can release the entire energy from your field, not only in that moment, but everything like anger, every feeling of anger you've ever had, if you just let yourself feel it for 45 seconds. So if you tell yourself that, you're like, oh, I can handle this for 45 seconds, you'd be surprised how quickly you start to really remove that whole energy from your life. It's one of the best things they've ever taught me, because everyone feels they can do it for a minute, right? All you have to do is sit with it for a minute. So anyway, just a little thing to try and play with if you haven't tried this before. So, well, great discussion, ladies. I'm glad we talked about this because I don't think a lot of people are taking this head on. And so I think a lot of people just don't realize this is a trap you can fall in. So thank you guys so much for joining us on this video. We are so grateful for you. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share with us any comments or topic suggestions that you have. We love hearing from you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.